close your eyes for a moment and listen to the wind. Now imagine that sound echoing through a desolate cabin, miles from anyone. This isn't just a story. These are genuine accounts of pure, unadulterated fear from the deepest, darkest corners of the wilderness. Can you handle the chill? My name is Michael, and I've spent the last 3 years collecting stories that authorities don't want you to hear. Stories about places where people go missing, places where the rules of our world seem to break down. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about Sarah Chen, a 28-year-old travel blogger who thought she was just looking for shelter from a storm. She was wrong. What happened to Sarah in that cabin over 4 nights in October 2019 will make you question everything you think you know about being alone in the woods. October 15th, 2019. Sarah Chen is driving her Honda Civic East on Interstate 84, somewhere between Portland and the Dallas. She's documenting her cross-country trip for a travel blog. Nothing more dangerous than reviewing small-town diners and scenic overlooks. At exactly 9:47 p.m., her engine starts smoking. Now, this stretch of highway cuts through some of the most remote forests in Oregon. Dense trees on both sides, no cell towers for miles, and the nearest town is 40 minutes away. Sarah pulls over at mile marker 47, and that's when things start going wrong. Her phone has no signal. The engine won't restart, and it's starting to rain. She grabs her backpack, locks the car, and start walking. The plan is simple. Find help, call a tow truck, sleep in a motel. But 30 minutes into her walk, she sees something that changes everything. A dirt road leading into the forest. And at the end of that road, barely visible through the trees, the warm glow of windows. Sarah follows that dirt road for 20 minutes, her phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. The rain is getting heavier. The temperature is dropping fast. And when she finally reaches the source of that light, she finds something that doesn't make sense. A log cabin, clean, well-maintained, with smoke coming from the chimney. But there's no car in the driveway, no ATV, no snowmobile, nothing to explain how anyone got here. The front door is unlocked. Sarah calls out, but nobody answers. She steps inside and immediately notices something strange. The cabin is warm. There's fresh firewood stacked by the fireplace. The refrigerator is humming, fully stocked with food that won't expire for weeks. Someone has been living here recently. But where are they now? She finds a guest book on the kitchen table. The last entry is dated 3 days ago. Beautiful spot, but something feels off. Heard voices in the woods all night. Jake M. Below that, written in different handwriting, "Don't stay after dark." Sarah looks at her watch. It's 10:43 p.m. She's already broken the first rule. Sarah decides to stay. What choice does she have? It's raining harder now, and the nearest town is still miles away. She'll leave first thing in the morning. She builds up the fire, makes some tea from supplies in the kitchen, and tries to settle in for the night. That's when she notices the binoculars on the windowsill. They're aimed directly at the forest. Focus on something specific. Sarah picks them up and looks through them. At first, she sees nothing but trees and darkness. Then she adjusts the focus, and her blood runs cold. There are people out there, standing perfectly still between the trees, watching the cabin. She counts them. 1, 2, 3. At least 5 figures, maybe more, just standing in the rain, not moving, not seeking shelter, just watching. Sarah steps back from the window and checks the door. It's locked, but the lock is just a simple deadbolt. Nothing that would stop someone who really wanted to get in. She tries her phone again. Still no signal. At 11:23 p.m., she hears the first knock. It's not on the front door. It's coming from the back wall of the cabin. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. then silence, then 5 more knocks, then silence again. Sarah grabs a kitchen knife and moves to the back window. She can see a figure standing just outside, close enough that she can make out details. It's a man, maybe 40 years old, wearing clothes that look like they're from another decade. He's staring directly at the window, directly at her, and he's smiling. The knocking continues for 2 hours. Always the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause. 5 knocks, pause. It moves around the cabin from wall to wall, but Sarah never sees anyone walking. The figures just appear in new positions, as if they're taking turns. At 2:15 a.m., it stops. Sarah doesn't sleep that night. She sits in the corner with a knife in her hand, watching the windows. When dawn finally comes, she looks outside and sees nothing. No footprints in the mud. No sign that anyone was ever there. But the guest book has a new entry, written in her own handwriting. First night complete. 2 more to go. Sarah doesn't remember writing those words. Sarah should have left that morning. She knows that now. But something kept her there. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was a feeling that running would make things worse. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Something she still can't explain. Instead of leaving, she decided to investigate. She hikes back to her car and retrieves her laptop. The engine still won't start, but the battery works long enough for her to access files she downloaded before losing internet. Local news articles, missing person reports, historical records. What she finds makes her understand why she was directed to this specific cabin. The first disappearance was in 1987. The Hartwell family, parents and 2 young kids, were camping in this exact area. Their tent was found 3 days later, completely undisturbed. Sleeping bags still zipped up, food still fresh. But the family was gone. They were found 6 weeks later, 40 miles north, with no memory of how they got there. The father, David Hartwell, told police they'd been tested by people who lived in the forest, people who'd been there longer than anyone remembered. The second case was Rebecca Patterson in 2003, solo hiker, experienced outdoorswoman. She disappeared for 3 weeks and was found sitting calmly at a bus stop in a town she'd never been to. When questioned, she could only say that she learned the rules and passed the trial. Then came the ones who didn't pass. Marcus Webb, 2011, found after 2 months, catatonic, speaking only in whispers about the watchers and trees. He died in a psychiatric facility 6 months later. Jennifer and David Moss, 2015, honeymooners who rented a cabin through a vacation service. Their car was found running at the bottom of a ravine. They were found alive but changed, refusing to speak about their experience. They divorced within a year and moved opposite coasts. 7 people in total, all following the same pattern. All had stayed in isolated cabins in the specific area. All had been alone or in small groups, and all had encountered something that the authorities couldn't explain or didn't want to acknowledge. Sarah realizes she's not the first person to find this cabin. She's not even the first person this month. And as night falls on her second day, she understands that leaving might not be an option anymore. The knocking starts earlier this time, 8:15 p.m., just after sunset. But tonight it's different. Tonight, they're trying to communicate. The pattern isn't random anymore. 3 knocks means listen. 5 knocks means respond. Sarah figures this out when she accidentally drops her cup and hears 5 knocks immediately after. When she knocks back 3 times on the wall, the response is immediate. 5 knocks, then silence. They're teaching her their language. At 9:30 p.m., gifts appear on the front porch. A hand-carved wooden bowl. Fresh berries that don't grow in this region. A piece of clothing that looks like it was made decades ago. Each item is placed carefully, deliberately, like offerings at an altar. Sarah documents everything with her phone's camera. The footage is shaky, the audio distorted, but it captures something that shouldn't exist. When she reviews the video later, she sees faces in the windows behind her reflection, faces that weren't there when she was filming. At midnight, the leader approaches the front door. Sarah can see him clearly through the peephole. He's tall, maybe 6'2", with weathered skin and eyes that seem too bright in the darkness. His clothes are handmade, practical, designed for life in the forest. He doesn't look dangerous. He looks patient. He speaks in English, but his accent is unlike anything Sarah has ever heard. It's not foreign. It's old, like he learned the language from people who spoke it differently 50 years ago. "You have been respectful," he says through the door. "This is good. Many who come here are not respectful. They take pictures. They make noise. They call for helicopters and men with guns." Sarah presses herself against the door. "I just want to go home." "Home," the man repeats, like he's testing the word. "Yes, home is important. But first, you must understand why you are here. Why the mountain brought you to us." "I'm here because my car broke down." The man laughs, and it's not a cruel sound. It's almost sad. Cars break down in many places. Why here? Why now? Why you? Sarah doesn't have an answer. "Tomorrow night," the man continues, "you will understand. Tomorrow night, you choose. Join us, or prove you deserve to leave." And then he's gone, vanished into the darkness, so completely that Sarah wonders if he was ever really there. But the gifts remain on the porch. And when Sarah checks the guest book, there's another entry in her handwriting. Second night complete. Understanding begins. Day 3 is different. Sarah wakes to find her car has been moved. It's sitting in the cabin's driveway, engine running, gas tank full. The keys are on the kitchen table next to a simple note. "You may leave now if you choose." But Sarah doesn't leave. She can't explain why, even to herself. Part of it is journalistic curiosity. Part of it is a growing certainty that running won't solve anything. And part of it is something else, something that's been building since she first saw those figures in the forest. She spends the day exploring the area around the cabin. She finds other structures hidden in the trees, simple shelters built with materials from the forest. Some look decades old, others appear recent. All of them are empty, but show signs of regular use. She finds gardens carefully tended, growing vegetables she doesn't recognize. She finds workshops where someone has been crafting tools and furniture by hand. She finds a schoolhouse where children have learned to read using books printed before she was born. This isn't just a few people living off the grid. This is an entire community, hidden so well that satellites and survey teams have missed them for generations. As evening approaches, Sarah makes her decision. She's going to document everything. She's going to learn who these people are and why they've remained hidden. She's going to get the story that no one else has been able to tell. That night, she leaves the cabin door unlocked. The leader arrives at exactly midnight, accompanied by 2 others. They enter quietly, respectfully, like guests in someone else's home. They bring food, bread baked in outdoor ovens, vegetables from their hidden gardens, meat from animals Sarah can't identify. They sit around the fireplace, and the leader tells her their story. They're the descendants of people who came to these mountains in the 1800s. Not pioneers or settlers, but refugees. People fleeing wars and persecution, looking for a place where they could live according to their own traditions. They found these valleys, learned to survive without the outside world, and chose to stay hidden. "Your government does not acknowledge us," the leader explains. "We do not acknowledge your government. We have our own laws, our own ways. 4 or 5 generations, we have protected this place from those who would destroy it." Sarah asks about the missing people. the ones who didn't return home. The leader's expression grows sad. Some who come here are broken inside. They have forgotten how to live with respect, how to exist without taking more than they need. We offer them healing, but they must choose to accept it. Some choose to stay and learn our ways. Others choose to forget and return to their world. And the ones who don't choose, there are always consequences for those who try to expose us. We have survived by remaining invisible. We will continue to survive. The message is clear. Sarah has a choice to make: document their existence and face the consequences, or respect their privacy and earn safe passage home. But as the leader speaks, Sarah notices something that changes everything. On his wrist is a watch. Not handmade, not old. A modern digital watch that shows the correct date and time. These people aren't as isolated as they claim to be. The fourth night is when Sarah learns the truth. She pretends to sleep, but keeps her phone recording. At 3 a.m., she hears vehicles approaching. Modern vehicles with engines that purr quietly through the forest. She watches through the window as people emerge from trucks and SUVs, dressed in contemporary clothing, carrying equipment that definitely didn't come from a 19th century community. These aren't isolated mountain people. They're something else entirely. Sarah recognizes two of them from missing person photos she'd researched. Marcus Webb, supposedly found catatonic in 2011. Jennifer Moss, who'd allegedly suffered a psychological breakdown after a honeymoon disappearance. They're alive, healthy, and clearly working with the others. The truth hits her like ice water. This isn't an isolated community protecting ancient traditions. This is an organized group using fear and manipulation to control what happens in these mountains. The missing people aren't victims. They're recruits. But why? What are they protecting? What's worth creating an elaborate deception that's lasted for decades? Sarah films everything, hiding her phone under her pillow. The footage is dark and shaky, but it captures enough. Faces, license plates, conversations about new arrivals, and integration protocols. At dawn, the leader returns alone. He knows she's been watching. "You understand now," he says simply. "The choice is no longer yours to make." But Sarah is ready. She spent the night planning her escape, studying the forest through the windows, memorizing the paths she'd explored. When the leader turns his back, she runs. The chase through the forest lasts 6 hours. Every time Sarah thinks she's lost them, she hears footsteps behind her. Every time she finds a hiding place, voices call out from just outside her vision. They're not trying to catch her, they're herding her, guiding her towards something. She emerges from the forest at a ranger station she didn't know existed. The rangers take her statement, give her water, drive her back to her car. They're professional, helpful, but Sarah notices something that makes her blood run cold. The ranger who drives her back is wearing the same watch she saw on the leader's wrist. When Sarah files her police report, she's told her story is inconsistent with known facts about the area. When she tries to return with a camera crew, the cabin is gone. Not destroyed, gone. No foundation, no clearing, no sign it ever existed. Her footage is dismissed as creative storytelling. Her photos are called digitally manipulated. Her audio recordings are labeled environmental sounds misinterpreted under stress. But Sarah knows what she experienced. And 3 months later, she receives a package with no return address. Inside is a wooden bowl, carved by hand, exactly like the one she left behind in that cabin. The message is clear. We know where you are. We know you kept our secret. Thank you. Sarah moved to New York City after that. She gave up travel blogging. She won't camp, won't hike, won't even stay in hotels outside major cities. Because she learned something in those 4 days that changed her forever. We're not alone in the wilderness. And the things watching us from the trees aren't always what they seem. The last entry in Sarah's private journal, written 6 months after her experience, reads simply, "I dream about that cabin every night. In my dreams, I never left. In my dreams, I'm still there, learning their rules, becoming one of them. Sometimes I wake up and wonder if the dreams are memories, and this life is a dream. Sometimes I wonder if I actually made it out at all." So the next time you're driving through remote areas and your car breaks down, remember Sarah's story. Remember that help might come from unexpected places. And remember that some forms of help come with a price you might not be willing to pay. Because somewhere in those Oregon mountains, there's still a cabin that appears when people need shelter. And there are still people watching from the trees, deciding who gets to leave and who gets to stay. The choice might not always be yours to make. What would you do if you found yourself alone in that cabin with those faces watching from the forest? Would you run? Would you stay? Would you try to expose the truth? Let me know in the comments below. But whatever you do, don't go looking for that cabin. Some mysteries are meant to stay buried in the woods.